Deep in the jungle, a herd of elephants lived near a large pond. The elephants loved to drink and play in the cool water. They splashed and trumpeted, happy as could be. One year, the sun blazed hotter than ever. The pond began to shrink. It grew smaller and smaller until it was just a patch of dry mud. The elephants were thirsty. They needed to find a new source of water. The oldest and wisest elephant, Colonel Hathi, called a meeting. "We must find a new home," he trumpeted. The other elephants agreed. They knew Colonel Hathi would lead them to safety. With heavy steps, the elephants left their dry pond. The jungle was quiet as they marched. The monkeys chattered from the trees, but the elephants didn't stop. They had to find water, and soon. The elephants walked for days. The sun beat down on their thick hides. The baby elephants grew tired and thirsty. The jungle was dense and difficult to navigate. Still, Colonel Hathi led the way, his trunk held high. He could smell water in the distance. Finally, they reached a clearing. In the middle shimmered a beautiful lake. It was the biggest lake any of them had ever seen. The water sparkled invitingly. The elephants trumpeted with joy. They had found their new home. But the lake already had inhabitants. A family of clever hares lived by the water's edge. They were small, but they were quick and smart. They watched in fear as the giant elephants approached their lake. The hares knew they could not fight the elephants. "They will scare away all the fish," cried one. "We must do something," said another. The hares huddled together, whispering and worrying. They had to be clever if they wanted to keep their home. They knew they couldn't overpower the elephants, so they had to outsmart them. But how could little hares scare away such big, powerful creatures? Section 4. The Hare's Dilemma. The wisest hare, Old Whiskers, had an idea. He gathered the others around him. "We will tell the elephants that this lake belongs to the moon god," he said. The other hares looked at him in surprise. "But the moon god doesn't live in the lake," said one young hare. Old Whiskers winked. "That doesn't matter," he chuckled. "The elephants don't know that. We will make them believe it's true." The other hares were still unsure, but they trusted Old Whiskers. They decided to put his plan into action. Section 5. Whispers of the Moon God. That evening, the elephants gathered by the lake. They were ready to drink the cool water and bathe in its depths. Suddenly, they heard a voice booming from the lake. "Who dares disturb my waters?" it said. The elephants were startled. They looked around but couldn't see anyone. "Who's there?" called Colonel Hathi. "I am the moon god," the voice boomed again. "This lake is mine. Leave now or face my wrath." The elephants were terrified. They had never heard such a powerful voice before. They believed the lake truly belonged to the moon god. Section 6. Outsmarting the king. Colonel Hathi, brave as he was, felt a shiver of fear. He didn't want to anger a god. He decided to speak to the moon god himself. "Mighty moon god," he trumpeted, his voice trembling. "We meant no disrespect. We are simply thirsty and tired from our journey." A small figure emerged from behind a bush. It was Old Whiskers, but the elephants couldn't see him clearly in the moonlight. Old Whiskers cleared his throat, trying to sound as big and scary as possible. "The moon god is merciful," he squeaked in a deep voice. "You may drink from the stream at the edge of the forest, but do not bathe in his sacred lake." Colonel Hathi was relieved. He quickly agreed to the moon god's, or rather Old Whiskers' terms. The elephants, humbled and a little scared, followed the stream to quench their thirst. They didn't dare to touch the lake water. The hares watched from the bushes, their hearts filled with relief and pride. They had outsmarted the mighty elephants and saved their home. From that day on, the elephants stayed away from the lake. The hares had learned that even the smallest creatures can be the bravest and cleverest. They proved that brains can be mightier than brawn. And so, the hares continued to live peacefully by their beautiful lake, under the watchful eye of the moon god. Or at least that's what the elephants believed.